Good afternoon, everyone. Bob Pompiani here, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews as we get you set for a Tomlin Tuesday. Mike Tomlin press conference coming at you. We welcome all those watching on Pittsburgh CW as well as the Steeler media platforms, the digital platforms they have available for you. Steelers get ready for the first game in division. It'll be the Cincinnati Bengals coming to town after the Steelers lost their home opener. Raiders came into town after a short week with a lot of injuries, and they came away with a 26-17 win. The Steelers also suffered a lot of late week injuries and then in-game injuries, which really hampered their defensive efforts in that game. I'm sure Coach Tomlin will have an update on Devin Bush, Joe Hayden. Tyson Alualu has been placed on IR. Henry Mondu has been elevated from the practice squad. And, of course, in-game injuries to T.J. Watt and Deontay Johnson. Those will be something I'm sure Coach Tomlin will get into. Also, Cincinnati, they are 1-1, but coming off a loss at the Bears. So Joe Burrow comes to town against this aggressive pass rush of the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot to get into, so right now let's turn it over to Mike Tomlin, who's ready to address the media.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick summary of our last performance. Much like we talked about after the game, it's about playmaking, particularly in the second half of the game. At halftime, I called a group up before we went back out on the field, and I said the team that makes the most significant plays in situational football in the second half is going to win this game. And so the situational element of play was going to be big in a close contest, and it was. The Vegas Raiders just made more possession down and red zone and situational-like plays than we did in the second half. And so we accept responsibility for that. We looked at the tape yesterday. Obviously, there were other areas that lacked perfection, but I'm talking about just in terms of the weighty plays of the game, that 3rd and 10 where they hit a 61-yard touchdown, obviously being a significant one. But there were several significant situational plays that they made on both sides of the ball, and we didn't. In those close ball games, some special team splash could give you a leg up like it did in week 1. We didn't get that splash in teams, although teams were solid. I thought our punt team, for instance, was really solid and did a good job in terms of keeping them on the long field. But we didn't get the splash that we needed to swing the tide. And so we're learning as we move forward. There were some injuries in game that affected us in game and affected us from a preparation standpoint. Tyson Alualu, as you guys know, has been placed on IR. He had ankle surgery on Monday, and so he'll begin the rehab process. We have some new injuries to contend with. Alex Highsmith with a groin, T.J. Watt with a groin, so we're dealing with something there at that positional group. Ben has a pec injury of some kind on his left pec that could affect him from a preparation standpoint. Don't have an idea how much as I sit here right now, but we better be ready to be adjustable and deal with that. And obviously we got Devin Bush and Joe Hayden, who missed last week, who are working their way back, and their participation will be our guide, or non-participation will be our guide in terms of analyzing their availability. Deontay got hurt at late in the game from a knee standpoint. He's looking better, but not to be confused with great. So we'll follow him and his health as we get through the week. So we got a lot of irons in the fire, if you will, from a health standpoint. Thankfully, in today's NFL, with the flexibility of practice squads and so forth, we have all the answers in-house. I'm not necessarily worried about the injury in terms of our expectations, in terms of our performance. We have a week to prepare with known issues. In-game injuries cause more problems than known issues like you're faced with here at the top of the week. So we'll build a plan to highlight the men that we know will be available to us. We'll leave the light on for some that are in question, and we'll go in that stadium and be prepared to play. Let's talk about Cincinnati Bengals for a while, man. They're a quality group, obviously, playing really good football. I'll start on the defensive side of the ball, man. Really impressive tape. The interior up front is much improved, man. When you really look at them, the collection of men and the depth of that talent that they have on the interior up front. 98, 65, 92, 68. Boy, they run deep with those interior people. They're big men. They clog up the interior of the defense. They minimized the running game. They got quality edge people in Hendrickson and Hubbard. They went out and got Trey from New Orleans. Man, he had 13 sacks in 2020. Hubbard's been a mainstay for them at end for a number of years since they drafted him out of Ohio State. Can't say enough about the disruption that I'm seeing from their front. They're also very versatile and multiple up there, so they do a good job schematically with those collections of people. The safety tandem is really salty, man. Two veteran quality players, man. Jesse Bates is playing great football. Physical tackling. I thought that hit and tackle in overtime, man, to cause the fumble, man, was a big play, and it's really just kind of representative of the spirit in which he's playing with and Von Bell is playing with. They're a formidable tandem. They've been together for a number of years now. Both are very versatile. They can play on the back end. They can play down. They're both are good blitzers. It's a challenging group. Logan Wilson inside 55, man, made some splash plays as a rookie for him last year. We saw him some. He started for him some. He appears to be an all-down guy that's kind of their hub of communication and really making big-time plays for him. Man, that interception he had last week really gave him a chance to get back in that Chicago game. He's just a well-rounded player with a well-rounded skill set. They include him into the blitz game some on third down. And he's a big-time interior blitzer. They got a lot of challenges for us on that side of the ball, not only in terms of their quality of players, but the schematics. They got good schematics, man. They've found a home. You see some high-volume things, some things that show up a lot. They do those things well, and that's what good defenses do. On the offensive side of the ball, it's a multi-pronged challenge for us. Joe Mixon is the second leading rusher in the NFL. It does not escape us, man, that their offensive line coach, Frank Pollock, is back. He was their offensive line coach in 2018 when Joe led the league in rushing. And so he's back this year, and you're seeing the fruit of that relationship. He also carries the title of run game coordinator now, and so you see his impact, on their schematics. But they also have Joe Burrow in a ridiculous collection of eligibles. Joe's really talented. He can make all the throws, man. His intellect is exceptional. He's got a great receiving core. Tyler Boyd has been inside for a long time and is elite in that area. Is a matchup challenge, always on possession downs and so forth. It's funny, man. We used to always work to neutralize him with Mike Hilton, but we'll be playing against Mike Hilton this week. And Mike is being Mike. He's doing great things for him on the other side. And outside, man, they got Higgins and Chase. And so we got to deal with those guys, and they do it differently. Obviously, Higgins is a big-bodied guy who can make combat catches and has got real good fluidity for a big man. And Chase is just taking the top off of coverages the last couple of weeks. And given the fact that we gave up a big one in the second half of last week on a significant moment on a possession down, that has our attentions as well. Their special teams, man, they got big-time continuity in their special teams. Their coordinator has been there probably longer than Danny Smith has been here, and they've had some formidable matchups over the years. And so, man, we got a hot kitchen this weekend in Pittsburgh, man. AFC North ball. We got some challenges along the way. Those challenges don't bring us down. Those challenges inspire us. This is a coach's week, man. We got to work. We got to put these guys in position to perform, minimize our weaknesses, lean on our strengths, while at the same time combating the things that the Cincinnati Bengals do and do well. So I'm excited about that, and I'll pause because I've talked enough and open it up for questions.
Mike, do you know how Ben hurt his pec? And second part of the question is, are you considering making any changes on the offensive line?
I'll answer the second part first. I'm not. And the answer to the first part is I don't know specifically when Ben got injured in game. I don't know that he does. Sometimes just in the midst of competition, adrenaline and so forth, you just don't know. Sometimes things just come up after.
Mike, talking with Ben after the game, he said there's not a no-huddle option in the offense and something that he's used for a long time. Is that something that was taken out, and would you consider adding that back in as the season goes on?
He was probably referencing last week. It wasn't in the plan last week. Man, we don't try to limit ourselves in any way. Last week's plan is last week's plan. This week's plan could be this week's plan. And so, That's the mentality that I have and we have. Obviously, you guys have watched us for any length of time, know that we're no huddle capable.
Mike, after the Buffalo game, you said you liked the physicality that the offensive line showed. The results have not been there in the running game through 2 weeks. What needs to happen to turn that physicality into production?
We just got to keep working. Development is that. It's development. It doesn't happen in an instant. It doesn't happen overnight. We're sensitive to that, but at the same time, there's urgency because, man, we got ball games to win in the midst of all of this. And so it is a component of it. And so we'll continue to work that balance of doing what we have to do in an effort to pursue victory while at the same time growing individually and collectively in some areas where we're extremely young or inexperienced from a cohesion standpoint.
Mike, has Ben and your receivers been on the same page as much as you've liked thus far in the season?
Largely, yes, for sure.
Mike, following up on Will's question a little bit about the run game, what are you seeing? What have you seen from Najee in the first 8 quarters of football here? And are you coaching him in terms of his contribution to the run game?
With each passing quarter that you mentioned, he's been better, and not that that's unexpected. I think, we spent a lot of time talking about the cohesion and the development and the comfortability of the blockers, but the same could be said for the runner, who's also played 8 quarters of NFL football. He was better last week than he was in week 1 in terms of the things that we value, maybe some things that aren't valued to the naked eye, but just are professionalism things, mechanic things, technical things. And so he's going to continue to get comfortable. And by comfortable, I mean understanding that your preparation sets you up for performance. And that's something that a young guy has to get comfortable with. Why do we do what we do on a Wednesday? And what does it do in terms of setting me up for success on a Sunday? He's been through a couple of weeks. He's been through a couple of those cycles. He's gaining an understanding about what the process does in terms of setting him up for performance. And thus, it should put him in position to let his natural talents come out and play. And so I'm expecting him to get routinely better with each outing and excited about that.
Mike, in attempting to improve the run game, why not use Derek Watt?
That's an option as well. Like I mentioned in regards to no huddle, we got a limited number of snaps that we have available to us from a preparation standpoint, and we make decisions week in and week out based on matchups and our perceived strengths versus their potential perceived strengths. And so Derek is a valued member of our team. He's the captain of our special teams. He's a very credible fullback. Some weeks he's going to be featured. Some weeks he's going to not be featured. And sometimes it might not have anything to do with his capabilities. It's just the nature of this thing. James Washington is a very capable receiver. Some weeks he gets more opportunity than others. Oftentimes you get questions like that when you're unsuccessful. I get it, but it doesn't change our approach.
Yeah, Mike, specifically on the 61-yard touchdown play, Mick has said 110% on him, but I can't imagine that there weren't others that were culpable on that play. What was the breakdown exactly?
We're all culpable, starting with me. We got to make smarter calls. We got to play faster. We got to keep a lid on it. I seek no comfort in regards to the things that we fail at. We own that, no question.
Mike, just one more about the run game. Just 35 running plays in these last 2 weeks. Is that a product of playing from behind?
And, things that our opponents do. There are many layers to that discussion.
Mike, did you feel like Ben Roethlisberger took too many hits in that game, and what are some of the things you can do to keep him on his feet more often?
Yeah, he did. He took too many hits. We can run the ball better. We can get the ball out of his hand quicker. We can stay on schedule and not get behind the sticks and get in situations where the line to gain is so far that it enhances the rush.
Mike, Pat's seen more snaps than Eric Pat Freiermuth has seen more snaps than Eric Ebron in the first 2 games. How have you felt about his taking on the week-to-week challenges as a young tight end? And he's caught all 5 of his targets. Do you guys think that you're going to work the ball to him maybe more?
Much like the outside linebackers, guys, I'm not going to come in here and carve out snap distributions to you guys and explain it week in and week out. We've got viable players, some at the same position, and we're going to utilize all of them and really want to highlight their individual talents, whatever they may be, whether it's matchup related or whether it's schematics and the things that we're trying to do. Pat, like all the other young guys that we've been talking about, is really getting better with each opportunity, and is reasonable to expect that to continue. He has been a really positive contributor to our efforts thus far, so I'm excited about what the short-term and the long-term future holds for him.
Mike, I think across the league there's been 10 or 11 taunting penalties, including one of your guys. Part of the competition committee, I assume you were for that, or you like how that's been officiated through 2 weeks?
I hadn't looked at it globally. I've been focused on the stadiums that we are in, but all of us to a man acknowledged that that's something that needed to be addressed. That's why it's a point of emphasis, and that's why none of us are surprised of the number in terms of being increased. The players will adjust. They always do. They better adjust quickly. And specifically speaking of mine.
Mike, how is Carlos Davis's knee, and how do you work that distribution without Tyson in there?
We'll see. We hadn't practiced yet this week. We'll let his participation be our guide in terms of where he is. But obviously he is a guy that has a chance to have an expanded role. Isaiah Buggs is a guy that has a chance to have an expanded role. But we've called on those guys in an expanded capacity in the past. I think Buggs had a couple of significant games for us at Baltimore late in the year last year where he had an expanded role, and we expect him to deliver, and we expect Carlos to deliver if called upon in an increased fashion.
Mike, there was an emphasis in the offseason of Ben getting on the same page with Matt Canada, learning the new offense. How do you evaluate the two of them through 2 weeks? Are they on the same page, or are they communicating as you'd expect?
Very much so. The communication has been really good. I like the growth, the direction of that growth. They're 1-1 like I'm 1-1. We're all 1-1. If that's what you're asking in terms of evaluation of where we are, we're a 1-1 football team.
Mike, how tricky are groin injuries, and how careful do you have to be? Because it seems like, the degree of severity, it might be hard to find out when guys are ready and when it's maybe too soon to force them to come back.
And that's why I'm not making any drastic statements about the availability of any of these guys, because the degree of the injury changes the prognosis, and the man himself, changes the prognosis. And so, we'll give guys an opportunity that are close enough to health to practice. We'll give them an opportunity to practice during the course of the week. And if they practice, we'll look at the quality of that practice or how much they practice and let that be a guide for us in terms of their potential participation. I'll also say this, man, some more established players can play on less prep than others, and we've had that discussion in the past. And so there are a lot of variables at play, but not overly concerned about it. It's the tightrope that we walk week in and week out.
Mike, what do you take away from the two games that you guys faced this team last year, especially with Burrow at the helm, and just how you've seen him grow from last year to this year?
I hadn't really thought a lot about it, to be honest with you. I've been looking at their 2021 tape and our 2021 tape. The components of it are significantly different. Like one of the things I mentioned is Mike Hilton plays for them. Sean Davis plays for them. Jamar Chase is a new component on the offensive side for them. Frank Pollock, their run game coordinator, is back, having been gone since 2018. The wheels keep turning. Make no mistake about it. It'll be a reference in some form or fashion at some point in the week, but they're more current things to glean quality information from and plan around at this juncture of the week.
Mike, Jameer Jones is a guy, came in here as an undrafted rookie, or second-year guy, Now might get thrown into the fire this weekend in a lengthy role. What have you seen from him production-wise in-game when he's been in the game this season? He's
done solidly. He did solidly in preseason stadiums. He, registered production in those games, tackles, pressures, sacks, etc. Has been a quality special teamer for us. He had a tackle last week, I think, on punt in the Vegas game. And so, he's doing the things that young guys do, the natural maturation process. They show you glimpses of offense and defense, and so they develop in that area all the while. They're productive special teams players, and he has been that, and they wait for their opportunities on offense or defense. James Pierre is a guy that walked a similar path a year ago, and now James Pierre is a regular contributor on defense. And so he's going through that. He might get an increased opportunity to participate this week due to the misfortune circumstances involving others, but that's just the nature of this thing. That's why every man is viable. Every man is working with great urgency. And when I ring their bell, they better answer. You guys have gotten to know guys like Robert Spillane under similar circumstances, because of someone else's misfortune. And so we're all excited for guys like Jay Jones in circumstances like this. If he gets an opportunity to have an increased role, we expect those guys to step through that crack in the door and elevate themselves from a career standpoint.
Mike, you talk about the growth between year one and year two. Burrow's in his second year. What are you seeing through 2 games this year that maybe you didn't see last year?
They're better positioned to answer that than I am, to be quite honest with you. I know you guys get an opportunity to talk to Coach Taylor tomorrow. I'm viewing it from an outsider perspective, and so I haven't looked at it in that way. Last year, I looked at him last year in an effort to beat him when we played him in November, and I've been looking at him this year in an effort to beat him this year, and I hadn't really pondered a lot of that developmental stuff. I'm just looking at what's on tape in 2021.
Mike, did you have to talk to Trey Turner at all about how he reacted to a situation that was, almost understandable, but not?
Didn't.
You did lose a guy for 12 minutes.
I didn't. Much like I mentioned after the game, Trey is no kid. He's very cerebral, largely. And, he understands what that circumstance did to us collectively as a team. He was more than apologetic. It required no meeting.
Anyone else? All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin concluding the press conference today, joined by Missy Matthews here of Steelers.com, your home. I'm happy to be here as we discuss this game coming up against Cincinnati. But first, Missy, these injuries. We talked about the Raiders last week, how they were hit with so many in game, and it carried on into their game in Pittsburgh. But now the Steelers are facing similar problems and groin injuries. A lot of guys facing those, and those are tricky, as Mike Tomlin said, because you really never know how they're going to affect guys, and you may re-aggravate it just when you think you're fine.
Right, not having Joe Hayden and Devin Bush heading into the game. They went through pregame warm-ups, were deemed not great enough to go, but then you lose TJ Watt. He doesn't come out for the second half. We know Tyson Alualu had ankle surgery on Monday. According to Coach Tomlin, he was placed on IR. But the 2 new names that we see on that list, Alex Highsmith, groin, as you mentioned, and Ben Roethlisberger with a pec injury. Ben was sacked twice, hit 10 times. We talked about just how much he was on the ground and being helped up by his offensive line. So definitely not a great sign when you don't know what their availability is going to be. Of course, today is a player's day off, but first practice will be tomorrow, and you have to wonder, how will they be able to get through this week if both Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt are dealing with a groin injury.
Exactly. And someone once said, the best ability is your availability, and right now all teams around the NFL, it seems like there's so many injuries to key players at key times, and we're only in week number 2. So this is 17 weeks.
We're heading into
week 3, but that's 2 weeks, and all these injuries have occurred already. Some of them, like the Ravens, had it actually in practice, and they lost guys for the season. So we have a lot to talk about with Missy Matthews when we come back right here on the Mike Tomlin press conference. We'll continue until 1 o'clock, covering all the issues that we talked about with him, and also looking ahead to Cincinnati right here on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steeler digital platforms.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
In the game where you felt like the offense was finding a rhythm, or is that still kind of in work in progress?
I wasn't good enough today. There were times that we looked good, and a lot of times we didn't. So we got to get it figured out.
You feel like there was a lack of communication, especially between you and the receivers?
No, I think our communication's fine.
What happened to Trey Turner there?
I caught the last. I didn't catch the very, very beginning of it, but. Just in talking to him, he said he got spit on, and so he didn't like that, which I understand and respect as a man, and he went and tried to say something to the guy that spit on him.
Ben, do you feel like you guys have changed enough from the offense last year that was kind of preventing you from moving the ball really well to this season?
Yes.
Did the Raiders do anything different than you guys expected that might have caught you off guard and you had to adjust to mid-game?
They're a good defense. They got after us like we anticipated. I just didn't play well enough.
Ben, you're in three wides, running back and tight end, shotgun a lot. These first two games, second half Buffalo a lot today. Is that what you're seeing from the defense, or is that by design? And why are you relying on that?
You know what? You'll have to ask Coach Canada that. That's what he's calling, what we're going with. We got some really good football players that you want to get on the football field. So if you don't have them out there, they're sitting on the bench doing nothing.
And they hit you 10 times. And when I asked Max Crosby afterwards, he said you're still nearly impossible to actually bring down. Is there any solace in that the sacks weren't 10 sacks? And how do you actually feel right now?
I'm disappointed we lost the game, and I'm disappointed that I didn't play well enough to help us win the game. The bumps and bruises come with football.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
All right, welcome back to the Mike Tomlin press conference, and we discuss it with Missy Matthews. And Missy, I guess we're still talking injuries, and it brings us to our BetMGM by the numbers. TJ Watt, if you look at the numbers, for only 16 snaps, he did a lot of damage before that groin flared up on him.
Yeah, after the game, Derek Carr was asked, the difference in the Steelers defense between the first half with TJ, the second half without, and said, he's a game wrecker. You saw what he was able to do. He can make game-saving plays, and I still go back to the strip sack. We all thought Melvin Ingram had it, and what a difference that potentially could have made. You can always say that in hindsight, but yeah, TJ Watt, hopefully somebody the Steelers are able to get back for Sunday against the Bengals. But as Coach Tomlin said, with all of these groin injuries, it will really depend on their participation, and also, are you a vet? Are you a new guy in terms of can you get by with just a little bit of practice and then play in a game, or do you need, the full week?
And I think it also comes down, as he said too, it's the player himself. A guy like TJ Watt, you would think is, one of these guys who he'll play if he can play, regardless of how much pain there is. So I guess that means he might be able to play, and they certainly need him. Now we see that Alex Highsmith is also on this list with another groin injury. I know he was dealing with that maybe earlier this season. Did it flare up? And that's the caution when you have with these injuries. They're soft tissue injuries. They could change rather quickly.
The good thing, though, is we saw Melvin Ingram just getting more comfortable in the Steelers' defense. He picked up his first sack as a Steeler, the 50th of his career, and also just the pressure. We saw it against Josh Allen in Week 1, but then again against Derek Carr, kind of really getting up in his grill and making him uncomfortable. So hopefully that is something that will continue.
Well, they need to get pressure, there's no question. As I said, beginning this press conference, the Bengals have allowed a lot of quarterback hits. Roethlisberger got hit a lot, and I know that's a point of contention. We're going to talk about that in a second, but Joe Burrow got hit 25 times in the first 2 weeks, 9 sacks, and the Steelers, man, that's what they like to do. They like to get back there. It's also offensive line in Cincinnati that's developing as they go. I think the Steelers have to get back there and make his life miserable, because we saw what happened, 3 interceptions in that game last week.
No doubt about it. And in terms of the Steelers' offensive line, Coach Tomlin was asked if he's going to be making any changes heading into Week 3. He said no, he is not, but that they are going through the growing pains. But there is a sense of urgency, because while you are growing and figuring things out, you also want to win games. So it is definitely going to be a tall task dealing with all of these injuries and just trying to get into some sort of rhythm, especially on the Steelers' offensive side.
He had high praise for Najee Harris. Makes me wonder if maybe they need to go a lot more than just 10 carries. I think they only had 14 carries as a team. They're 31st in the NFL in rushing offense. That was one of the things they spent an entire offseason trying to rectify. So far we haven't seen it, but I also, Missy, haven't seen a total commitment to it. I know it's a young offensive line, but to me, offensive linemen are better moving forward than trying to pass protect when they don't have a lot of experience in it.
Two guys I have a lot of respect for, Merrill Hodge and Craig Wolfley. Had a chance to catch up with them yesterday, and just talking about Najee Harris as a rookie running back, but a first-round rookie running back, and the offensive line that is still trying to figure things out. Their idea is that, you have to get them in positions where they are running plays that they are comfortable with. And once you get maybe 5 yards, then you get 8 yards. Everybody among that group starts to get more comfortable and they realize they can do it. And that's something that could help them kind of maybe take that next step. But as you said, when you're playing from behind though too, it's hard to get and establish the run. So a lot of times we see more throwing and whatnot, but definitely something that they need to get fixed. We have heard about the run game improving since February.
Right, and that was one of the things they talked about going into the season. You see the effort and the talent that Najee Harris had. I would like to see more of that, and even if it means you don't immediately turn it into points, but you keep going and giving that defense something to think about, sort of more physical, nasty. Those guys up front can be that way. I think they're more effective moving forward. And how about that stiff arm? That reminded me of Vance McDonald down in Tampa, right?
Yes.
Chris Conti.
He just completely lit up Jonathan Abrams, changed the position of his body and what he was trying to do, and just kept fighting. And we saw that a few times from him in that game, so definitely taking that step from week 1 to week 2.
All right, we're going to go to a break. As we do, you're going to hear some comments about Najee and what he's been able to do so far. And like I said, Mike Tomlin said he's getting better quarter by quarter, so you would imagine he's become a bigger part of this offense as they move forward. We'll continue with our coverage of the Mike Tomlin press conference right after this on Pittsburgh CW.
Look back at the game, I felt like in the third half I started to really come on a little bit more, my pass rush. But, at the end of the day, it's just about getting wins. I thought we had too many execution mistakes, and we have to clean that up as a whole. Too many times we need to get off on a critical third and long down. We get off, we give our offense time to, go ahead and score. We weren't able to capitalize on that. I think what we get it to 14 and 16. We really needed to get off on that drive, and hopefully we look back and we can learn from it.
Sam, what do you think contributed to this lack of attention to detail? Mike said there was a lack of attention to detail.
I don't know what I attribute it to. We just didn't step up on those moments. That's the game of football. One team makes the plays, another team doesn't. I'm not going to say, London Bridge is falling down, but we got to grow from this. We got to continue to keep harping on our mistakes and understand how big those plays are. Because situational football, I think, is where the game is won.
For Ben?
Bye, guys.
What's the emotional response? I mean, you and Tyson are tied. That whole group is close.
Yeah.
What's the emotional gut punch when you lose somebody like that?
Man, damn, that hurt. To be honest with you, I wasn't ready for that. It goes back to training in the off season together. Getting them stick here and him staying around, him working his tail off. Man, I thought Tyson was destined for one of his best seasons. I've said it before, he's the good cop to my bad cop.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews back with you as we break down Mike Tomlin's press conference. Looking ahead to the Cincinnati Bengals coming into town. A surprise list on the injury list. Ben Roethlisberger suffered a pec. That hit he took reminded me of the Bart Scott hit way back when the Ravens. I mean, that was as big a hit as I think he's taken in several years.
He got hit a lot in Buffalo too, but on Sunday, of course, he was sacked once, 10 hits.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of the video that you saw of Ben. It wasn't just, kind of close to him. I mean, it put him on the ground. So not shocked to hear that there is an injury that he's dealing with, but definitely not something you want, especially heading into just week 3.
It's a pec injury, and Mike Tomlin made it sound as if, right, my take on this is that it would affect his practice this week. He didn't say about the game, but I think he potentially left that open. So at this point, you expect Ben Roethlisberger to play in that game, but who knows based on how that pec injury is.
Yeah, and Ben, of course, is one of those guys, does not need to practice all week to be able to play in a game. But of course, when you're working with a new offensive line, you're trying to get into the groove with the run game. You probably want Ben out there as much as you can to work with some of those younger guys, Bob. So Ben is usually off on Wednesdays. If he's dealing with an injury, I would be shocked if he practiced tomorrow just because. So we will definitely be, as Coach says, the practice report will be our guide. So we will have to definitely stay tuned. And Deontay Johnson, who you just see there, dealing with a knee injury. He was banged up at the end of that game, and Coach Tomlin said that he is better but not great.
Yeah, and that's one of those plays that I see it not just here but around the NFL where teams do it. It was a 2-possession game. There was one play left essentially in it. And I wonder why you'd put anyone in a position maybe to get hurt. But that's another one. Yeah, Crosby was all over the place. Another Mac guy, as Ben Roethlisberger pointed out early last week. One of the things that Mike Tomlin talked about also was the no huddle, that it was not necessarily in the game plan last week. That's one of those things. I think the Steelers do well with it when they run it. Sometimes I don't think they run it enough.
Right. Ben was asked specifically after the game if he felt like the offense was getting into more of a groove using the no huddle. He corrected the reporter and said, no, we don't have the no huddle. That was more of a 2-minute thing. So that's why there was that question to Coach Tomlin today. And as you said, he said it was not in the game plan for this week, but that can change. But knowing that Ben is effective in it, it is something they relied on even at the end of last year to try to help them. I would say that's definitely something that you would like the Steelers to have in their game plan, especially with Ben's comfort.
Yeah, and trying to keep a defense a little off balance there. You go quick pace, all of a sudden it may affect their substitutions. You can do a lot of things with that. And I do think it helps in terms of limiting pressure on quarterbacks when you get those guys on the field and they got to set up quickly and they don't have their breath maybe. But that's one of the things that you would think this week would be in the playbook. But this offensive line, the other thing he talked about is that it's learning on the job. I mean, what else would you expect? You knew what they were doing with this offensive line. It is development. They've been patient about guys developing, and we've seen that over the years with guys like Villanueva, with Ramon Foster, undrafted. They brought in, converted Villanueva. It takes time sometimes. However, you have to try to win games now. So that's going to be one of those things. And he said no changes to the offensive line.
I am interested maybe for next week's Tomlin Tuesday press conference, what the condition is of Zach Banner. Where does he stand? Because technically heading into that Green Bay game, he would be allowed to return to practice if he's able to. And then they have until week 6 where they would have to activate him to the 53-man roster. So it's, him, Stephon Tuitt, and Anthony McFarland, those guys that were placed on IR right at the beginning of the season. So definitely something we will be keeping an eye on.
And there are guys available if you wanted to make a change, and that would be Hassenauer. You could put him at center if you don't think Kendrick Green maybe is, up to snuff at this point at center, although I like Kendrick Green a lot. But they have guys. B.J. Finney's one of them, Joe Haig. But I think they're committed to this young group, and the only way they're going to get better is to keep doing it and do it better each and every week.
Right, and B.J. Finney filled in for Trey Turner when he was ejected from the game on Sunday, so he is capable of playing all of those positions on the inside, and from the national reports that we're seeing out there, it does not look like Trey Turner will be fined or suspended, so he should be good to go for week 3.
That's bottom line is get more physical, get more ball possession time, and faster starts. That's another thing, Missy, that I think the Steelers, and I know Mike Tomlin didn't like the fact, he pointed out in this press conference, 7 points in the first half so far. Yeah, they had a great second half in Buffalo, and that's, I think, what they're capable of doing. But you can't start slow week in and week out. If you do, you're going to find yourself behind a lot of games and may change your game plan.
The good thing is they are staying at home at Heinz Field for this game, the first AFC North game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So hopefully that provides the environment, the energy to get their juices flowing. As you said, it didn't work last Sunday, but hopefully this Sunday they can reverse that.
One of the good things from that game was that Chris Boswell seems to have no limit on his leg.
He 56 yards.
56.
I didn't watch. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I mean, that's the longest ever in Heinz Field. It was a perfect day. That's fine. However, you look at the situation at hand and you say they need 2 scores. 56 yards, that's not necessarily guaranteed, but he's very confident that he could kick it from that range.
All right, we're going to take a break here. You are watching the Mike Tomlin press conference. We will be right back.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. James, when did you guys find out about Joe's not being able to play, and were you told or sat down and said, hey, you're going to play, a lot, you knew you were going to start, but what kind of your thoughts and emotions? Was it any different going into a game knowing, you're one of the main guys rather than just a sub-package guy?
I didn't know till like 9 minutes before the game, and I just prepare each week as if I was going to play as the one. So, I just keep preparing each week.
We'll go to Jeff Hathorn. Jeff?
James, what were the emotions like, and how do you feel that you performed yesterday?
The emotions were not too high, too low. I just played like with the team, as a group, all us played as one.
Brian Backo.
James, you guys have Cincinnati coming in this week. They have Mike Hilton over there now. How much did he help you out last year in your rookie season, especially with him being another undrafted guy who had to kind of come up playing a lot of special teams early on?
He helped me out a lot, like just playing, like working hard, just with special teams, control what you control, and just keep your mind straight.
Nick Fairbach.
Hey, James, was there something that the Raiders might have did in the game that kind of caught you guys off guard that maybe they didn't put on film last week that throughout the game kind of just got you guys a little bit off guard as they started to target other guys other than Waller?
The Raiders had very good players, very good plays. They made good plays, good players,
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
He hits. We can run the ball better. We can get the ball out of his, or we can stay on schedule and not get behind the sticks and get in situations where the line to gain is so far that it enhances the rush.
Yeah, that's going to be a concern. Obviously, you don't want to get your quarterback hit as many times as Ben Roethlisberger has been hit. It's one thing for a young guy, but a guy who's in his 18th year in the league, it takes a toll, and that's going to be one of the things they have. But I think third downs oftentimes are won on first and second downs, and the Steelers have to do at times a better job of getting in those situations. So it's third and short, where you keep the defense low on their toes.
Yeah, the details on the possession downs was one of the things Coach Tomlin mentioned immediately following the loss at Heinz Field. And, establishing a run game helps a lot of things on offense. And he was also asked today about Derek Watt, who played 0 snaps on offense, somebody who could potentially help there as well. Yeah, Deontay Johnson is a man who figures prominently. He gets more targets than just about anyone
but he also got injured in this game. In case you missed it, he does have a knee injury. No word on whether or not he'll play. It's one of those things they're going to have to see as the week goes on with all these guys. But yeah, the fullback position is an interesting one. When you're trying to establish a run game, you would think, and I thought coming into the season that maybe Derek Watt would have more snaps. And none in a game is a little bit shocking, considering they paid him a nice contract to come here.
And especially, evolving into a Matt Canada offense, a little bit different than what they were running last year, at least in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. But I think if you ask anybody, it's hard to pinpoint what exactly that Steelers offensive identity is at this point, because things are just not moving at the pace I think anybody would expect.
Right. But a win on Sunday changes that before they go on the road, and you got a chance to make some damage to Cincinnati in the AFC North. That's always number one concern, I think, for Mike Tomlin and his coaching staff. Speaking of them, Joe Burrow coming back from ACL. A lot of people wondered what he'd be like right from that surgery, because that was a nasty hit last year. He looked really good in week number 1. In week number 2, he threw 3 interceptions. But a lot of that, I think, was because of the pressure he's facing.
And he did miss a lot of time in 2020, his rookie year, because of that injury. But coming off of a major injury, we saw what that did to Ben Roethlisberger last year. I think it's kind of a work in progress. And, what will he look like come week 17? But he definitely has some ridiculous collection of eligibles, as Coach Tomlin put it. Jamar Chase, they added to the mix Tyler Boyd, a Pittsburgh product, who we know a lot about, and who is always heavily involved in their game plan, specifically on possession downs. And Coach said when he was going back to watch some of that film, you see Mike Hilton covering him, who now plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with those guys. And then Joe Mixon, of course, they have an established run game, so it is a multi-pronged challenge, as Coach Tomlin put it.
Yeah, T. Higgins, another guy they have. They have a lot of weaponry. There's no question about that. And they're going to try to run the ball. That's kind of what they have done early in these games. And Joe Mixon's a guy who's had success too, leading the league in rushing 3 years ago. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But the Steelers certainly have their issues on defense, and it all starts with who's going to be available to play. And I think that's where we go from here. If guys are able to come back, Joe Hayden's a big guy to get back there. Maybe this week off now, he couldn't play last week, will help him. Because depth, like every position in the NFL, is tough to do in a salary cap era. You can't have a lot of depth on some of these key positions.
No doubt, and I think maybe the only good thing if some guys are limited in practice earlier in the week is that, the young guys who had to fill in without much time to prepare will have some of that time this week. So we'll have to pay attention when practice starts tomorrow.
Going to be an interesting game on Sunday here at Heinz Field, 1 o'clock. You'll see it on KDKA TV. And a reminder to you, we have our kickoff show brought to you by BetMGM. Prior to that, it's the Steelers kickoff on KDK 11:30 in the morning. We're going to take a break, come back with more of our analysis of this press conference and the week ahead right here on Pittsburgh CW.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
I think it's just more of an understanding when you have someone like Tyson go down. Everyone understands what he brings to the table, what he brings to the defensive side of the ball and at that nose position. And we all have to step up. There's no rah-rah speech or, rallying the troops. We understand what the mission was. Obviously, we lost last week or yesterday, and we're excited for the challenge this week. But I think when you lose a guy like Tyson, you kind of have to think a little bit about, who's going to step up, and I think that's going to be all of us. And then I think at the end of the day, we don't need a rah-rah speech or a rallying the troops to understand what we have to get done with a guy like Tyson out. If Mike T and Dunbar, my D-line coach, wants me to play there, I can play there. But like I said, we have Carlos and Bugs that I think are going to do a great job at that position. They're young, but they've gotten a lot of snaps, at least Bugs has over the last couple of years. So I'm excited for them to fill that role. But I can play up and down the line. So I'm excited for the challenge, whatever the game plan is each week that Mike T has planned for us. But until then, I'm going to probably keep my position and stay where I've been, especially with Tyson out for the forthcoming season or for foreseeable time, and with Tua out for a while too. Yeah, I mean, I think Cam's our, undoubted leader. He's the captain of our team, obviously in the D-line. But yeah, Tyson, he's been in the league. This is his 12th year. But he is kind of that good cop to Cam's bad cop. So maybe I can fill that role. Or, I'm sure Tyson's going to be in our meeting room helping out the young guys, helping us out, game planning, and just trying to lift our spirits, because that's what we're here to do for him as well. Yeah, we'll see how that goes with Cam. Maybe he tones it down a little bit, but we're going to miss Tyson for the foreseeable future for sure.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals. It comes your way Sunday at 1. Be sure to join us on Pittsburgh, on KDK, actually, coming up on Saturday night. It is the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin show. Missy Matthews hosts. I get a chance to talk to Coach Tomlin, and we'll take a look at all the facets of this game and also what happened last week as well. That's Saturday night, 11:35 on KDK, and then you can follow it up on the Steelers YouTube page. Tyson Alualu. Many people don't talk about him, but he's so significant to what they do and how it helps the other guys around him on that defensive line.
I go all the way back to free agency, Bob, and Cam Hayward and Joe Hayden, when he unfortunately had COVID-19, wasn't able to go to Jacksonville, where he was heading back to get his physical, pleaded for him to stay here in Pittsburgh. He stayed here, worked all offseason with Cam Hayward, and you could just hear it in Cam's voice after the game. That really took everybody by surprise on the defense when you lose somebody like that. And Cam flat out said, he was the good cop to my bad cop. Sometimes Cam can get a little hot and heated, and Tyson was one of those guys among the defensive front who kept guys calm and collected, maybe when Cam got a little fiery. So that is just a huge loss, coupled with the fact that Stephon Tuitt started this season on IR. He had 11 sacks last year. Yeah. We don't know when Stephon Tuitt's going to come back. So it is a chance for Carlos Davis, who did not play in this past game due to injury, Isaiah Buggs, Chris Wormley, who we didn't see much from last season, to step in. And, they are a very formidable front when they are all healthy. So this is a major key player, as you said, that the Steelers unfortunately lost.
And they have Henry Mondo, and they're going to use him in some regard. But I think Isaiah Buggs, it's a good opportunity for him. And Loudermilk, too. He's a kid who looked very good in the preseason that we saw of him. So sometimes you just need the opportunity. You hate it to have it this way because, as you said, with Tuitt healthy, Tyson Alualu healthy, and Cam Hayward, I don't know that you need to blitz a whole bunch. And we saw that in week number 1. So hopefully Tyson won't be back, but they need Stephon Tuitt. And I think he's eligible after this next game, right?
Correct. After the Bengals game, he can return to practice. So then you have that weird 3-week window where you can practice until they activate you week 6, kind of the cutoff. Right. Then you revert back to permanent IR.
All right. So we will continue here with our conversation about Mike Tomlin's press conference and much more, looking ahead to Cincinnati right here on Pittsburgh CW and the Steeler Digital platform. We'll be back in a flash.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
This year I plan to improve drastically from the play I had last year, so one game at a time and just keep pushing forward.
The unnecessary roughness penalty that you got when the car was kind of sliding. He hadn't really started to slide yet. Is that a tough spot for a defensive
It's a very tough spot. I don't want to hit him, but at the same time, he's still running the ball. He's running, making jukes, trying to get extra yardage. I try to get my head off to the side. There's no intention to try to hit a sliding quarterback. I wish he would have slid 3 yards earlier. I pull up, and the play is nothing. So, you know, we as players take a lot of on our own shoulders as player safety because it's the initiative around the league. So I believe in player safety, and I don't never go out there to hurt somebody. So it's just part of the game.
Robert, how tough is it to adjust to not only TJ going out of the game, but Tyson? You guys as a defender, and depth starts to dwindle already with 2 guys coming into this.
Yeah, you know, it's really the next man up mentality, and they preach that from day 0 here, and that's a creed we live by. So you just got to be ready when your number's called, and you know, guys love that opportunity when they get the chance to step up. So it's all about making plays.
Once we get it figured out, that helps the run game.
Anything else? Rob, the pass rush struggle with TJ out there in the second half. I know that's not maybe your job, but I mean, how much tougher does it make it on the back end when Carr's got more time back
I mean,
there?
anytime you lose the best player in defensive football in the NFL, there's going to be a drop-off. There's nobody like TJ Watt. So Melvin and Alex are 2 very high-end outside linebackers who do a good job of getting consistent pass rush. So I know that they'll be in the lab working, getting better at their craft every day.
The terrible towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
We have some new injuries to contend with. Smith with a groin, TJ Watt with a groin, so we're dealing with something there at that positional group. Ben has a pec injury of some kind on his left pec that could affect him from a preparation standpoint. Don't have an idea how much as I sit here right now, but we better be ready to be adjustable and deal with that. And obviously we got Devin Bush and Joe Hayden, who missed last week, who are working their way back, and their participation will be our guide, or non-participation will be our guide in terms of analyzing their availability.
All right, there you go. You heard Mike Tomlin. It's a pretty long list there. And Missy, you put this up on Twitter. It's a lot of groin injuries, 4 of them to guys who are significant to what they do, and all of them on defense, which puts them at a disadvantage if they cannot play.
And they're all starters. That's also what I don't like. You know, everyone wants to start the season healthy, as you mentioned. Other teams like the Ravens dealt with injuries heading into the regular season, but not a great list to see there. And Ben Roethlisberger, you know, coach said he got hit too many times, something that they need to clean up. And obviously you don't want your start quarterback dealing with any injuries.
No, not at all. Thanks. It's been fun, Missy. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds
it's another
good.
edition of the Mike Tomlin press conference. We got the Mike Tomlin Show, brought to you by 84 Lumber, Saturday night, 11:35. And then the Steelers kickoff, brought to you by BetMGM, Sunday, 11:30, prior to the game at 1. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you next week.